What's going on, everybody? Welcome into episode 27 of To the Show We Go, featuring Ed Hand and myself, Andrew Parker. Today's episode, we have our fourth member of the Red Sox on this year. So if you're into that content, we've had Nick Sogard, Brendan Nail, and we've had Chase Shugart on in previous episodes. So definitely go check those out. But today's episode, we have the People's Catcher. I don't know, people actually don't call you that, but we have actually the Red Sox catcher Steven Scott on today. Now, Steven, I know you're in Cali right now, but how has the offseason been treating you?
It's been great. Been able to travel a little bit. I got to spend some time up in Tahoe before it started getting really cold up there. I was told it was called shoulder season. So spent a little bit of shoulder season in Tahoe, did some hiking, played some golf, and then came back down to Southern California and Los Angeles for the off season. And, starting to pick up some workout stuff and work back into some baseball things slowly. So
why do they
loving the weather out
season?
here. Because it's the summer. The summer is a really popular time to be out there on the lake, and then the winter is really popular to go skiing. In the fall, I guess, is not quite as popular of a time.
Interesting. I feel like I've heard that term out here, though. I feel like people call it. I've heard Boston people say shoulder season, and I grew up in the Midwest, so I've never really heard that term before because it's usually hot until probably like November out in Missouri. Yeah. So
growing up in North Carolina, October is a pretty good time to be up in the mountains. So you're escaping the heat in the middle of the state, and it's nice and cool up there.
Yeah. So what are you doing in California? Do you still live in North Carolina generally? Do you move out to the West Coast?
My parents still live in North Carolina, so I'll visit them for Thanksgiving and Christmas. I moved out to Los Angeles with my girlfriend and was out here for last off season and out here for this one as well.
Gotcha. So I have to ask about this. It's the most important question I think I'm going to be asking anybody all off season. Can you tell me about the Meatball Gang? The origin story of the Meatball Gang?
The origin story. It's probably not quite as built up as the myth or the legend. The origin story is simply that Joe Davis and I lived together in the 2020 season or 2021 season after COVID, and we actually lived together in Joe's travel trailer, and we were in an RV park not far from the Salem field, and then once we got called up, not far from Greenville as well. So living together, we spent a lot of time together. You tend to get on each other's nerves a little bit. You tend to mess around with each other, and both being stockier guys, we referred to each other as meatballs. And then, once we started hitting a little bit, we got the reputation as the Meatball Gang. And from there, the myth kind of took off a lot further than the origin story.
Yeah, there are a couple of other parts of it that I just want to know whether or not these things are true or false. So
sure.
You guys would host cookouts once a week.
Yes, Joe is a phenomenal cook. If you ever get the pleasure of being able to eat some of his food, you will enjoy it. I can guarantee you that. So Joe had a grill and would go to Sam's Club, go to the grocery store, and sometimes it was steaks. He did a brisket one time. Occasionally it was chicken, but whatever we could find that we could grill, we would host a few guys over on Mondays, the off days, and just hang out.
Now, did you guys share a bunk, like a bunk bed in the trailer?
No. So the way that the trailer was oriented was up at the front near where the tongue is. There was a queen bed. That's where Joe slept. And then at the back, there was bunk beds. And so I slept on one of the bunk beds, but didn't have to have Joe above me or below me.
Gotcha. That makes a little bit more sense because, like you were saying, these are some big, strong, burly men here. That would be tough to fit both of you in a bunk bed. That I feel like would have created some logistical issues. So
It was tight enough quarters as it was.
I got to talk to Chris Murphy, the pitcher, a little bit last year, and he didn't say it, but he implied that he was the third member of the Meatball Gang. Is this accurate?
Yes and no. Obviously, Chris is not quite the build of the Meatball Gang. So, but yes, Murph was one of our close friends, and so he we'll give him an honorary status.
Who was Chase Shugard one? Because he mentioned coming over there sometimes and hanging out with you guys.
Shugard was a frequent member to come enjoy Joe's cooking, but he was not a member of the Meatball Gang. No.
I will say it's already been mentioned on, I would probably three. I mean, I know that Sogard even mentioned it, and I know, and I think Brendan Nail even mentioned it going over there to eat. So I feel like you guys were feeding everybody out there back in the day. So I thought it was you too.
Yeah,
are you saying that you weren't cooking at all?
The goal was to get as many people over there as we could. I would help Joe, and most of that help was standing around the grill, just handing him things that he needed. But
sous chef, that's a good sous chef.
Yeah. I would call it a sous chef more so than doing a whole lot myself.
Well, I have one more question about all this. This isn't
your Super Bowl, man. So
this is just how did this conversation even happen? Like, hey man, you want to live in my trailer with me? Like, how did this go down?
That's a great question. So the original plan was actually, and this is probably where Chris Murphy was alluding to. The original plan was in the 2020 season. This is when Greenville was low A, and the original plan was that Joe, Chris Murphy, and I were all going to live in the trailer, and this is prior to the teams providing housing for us. So we were totally on our own to find housing for the season, and Joe kind of in the off season called us up and said, guys, I got a travel trailer, and it's going to be a lot cheaper for us to live in this than any apartment or house that we're going to find. And we kind of all knew that it was going to be tight quarters, and it was definitely a good thing that there was only two of us in there. Having a third would have been too much. But so it really just stemmed from the fact that housing wasn't provided, and we had to fend for ourselves and find that, and the travel trailer gave us a way to be flexible with that as well, in case somebody got called up, or in the best case, we both got called up pretty close to each other.
So what was the housing situation like when you were at Vanderbilt?
We spent all 4 years on campus housing.
Okay, so but like when you traveled, like what would they where would they put you up for that?
Yes, they would put us up in hotels, but that was typically just for the weekends, or some close midweek series.
Gotcha.
All
right, Steven, I'm gonna shift the focus here to this past season. You had a pretty good season, I would say. You earned a promotion to AAA. You came up, you hit a 3-run homer every time you were at the plate.
3-run bombs.
Yeah, it was nuts. So I guess just now that you're kind of in the off season and you're taking a step back, like how would you kind of describe how your year went?
It was surreal to start out in Portland, and braving the cold. It's definitely tough, but to be with that group of guys, and we really had something special at the beginning of the year, and I think at the time that I left, we were still in first place, and felt like we had a really good season going on, and then to earn that promotion in June. And come up and kind of find out what AAA is like in my first taste, to come into a situation where there's guys like Nico Goodrum and Daniel Palka, Bobby Dahlbeck, guys that have been up in the major leagues and had, multiple years of experience in some cases up there. And then, just trying to learn as much as you can from those guys. And, I really felt lucky that, they had such a great locker room up in Worcester when I got there, that they really made me feel welcome and allowed me to be myself.
Oh, I was gonna do a follow up on that before we shoot over to yours, Ed. But you kind of mentioned a couple of the veterans there that were in the locker room, because I noticed it was and I've asked a couple guys as well. I've asked like Shug and Nail and a few other guys. It's like, at the beginning of the year it was obviously veteran heavy, which you had the Goodrums and the Greg Allens and the Alfaros and guys like that. And then towards the end of the year, a lot of the guys that came up from Portland. So I guess for you being a catcher, what was it like to be able to bounce ideas off of a guy like Caleb Hamilton and even Ronaldo Hernandez whenever you did get to AAA?
Yeah, I think that was crucial for my development defensively this year. To be able to watch both of those guys, to work with them every day, to be able to have Caleb really be like a coach and also at the same time, both of those guys would help out and drill work every single day. So, giving me tips, giving me tricks, just saying, hey, why don't you try this out? Why don't you angle this way? Why don't you think about, this thing? And just trying to find the best thing for me. And, being able to work with those guys and, both of them being older in the system and, Hammy obviously being up in the big leagues, both with us and with the Twins, that experience was crucial for me.
Now, catching is something that was a little bit later for you being full-time. You didn't do it at all in 2019. Obviously, 2020 didn't happen. And then 2021 came around, and you did it a little bit. I think it was like 18 starts there. But then between 2021 and 2022, they kind of decided to make you a full-time catcher. What happened there that they made that decision? And how much of that was your own desire to play catcher versus a need for the team?
It was both. It was definitely a both situation. I was drafted, and I'm not technically sure what I was drafted as. There were conversations before the draft happened that talked about catching. Obviously, I had not caught. I think I caught 2 games in my senior year at Vanderbilt, but I had caught quite a few games in my junior year when the area scout Danny Watkins had seen me then as well. So I think he started that path to a full-time catching spot, and then working in the 2019 off season as a catcher, and then I didn't know what to expect going into 2020 and 2021. Whether I would be in a full-time catching role or if it would be a utility role. And utility's kind of always been one of the perks that I've had, and something that I've tried to maintain throughout my career. So I was definitely, pro on that. And then after the 21 season, sitting down with Brian Abraham and having that conversation of, do you want to become a full-time catcher? And my answer was a resounding yes. That I think that's my home, and I think that's, where I believe that I can play.
I'm going to shift focus here. I think I talked to you about this during the season, because you had the luxury of having the locker that was right to the right of the door as soon as you walk in. So I think it just came with the territory that I would just, you would always be the first guy there. But I need to ask you about your month of July. Like, it was absolutely insane. Every single time you were at the plate, you were getting on base. I just looked back at the numbers just to double check. Like, you had an on base percentage over 400. Like, you were getting on base almost every single time you were at the plate. So what was clicking for you in July?
No, I think that just rhythm. I felt like I was in a good place going into the All-Star break, and just trying to do my best to keep that rhythm going. It definitely makes it a lot easier to do your job when we had an offense like we did. And at that time, our offense was really clicking. And so, they say hitting's contagious, and I really think that I benefited from that throughout my entire time in AAA.
Does your approach change at all when you have two runners on base? Because it just seemed like it just seemed like anytime there were two guys on, you were hitting it over everything.
No, just try to stay as simple as possible. I like to walk up and just tell myself bat on the ball, see the ball, hit the ball. There's a lot of other thoughts that go on and situationally, but, at the end of the day, as simple as possible for me.
I want to mention a couple of stats just because I find this pretty interesting. But in 2021, your numbers got a lot better when you got promoted from Salem to Greenville. And then in 2022, your numbers got much better when you got promoted from high A to double A. And then 2023, it wasn't a tremendous drastic improvement, except for you hit a lot more home runs when you got called up to AAA. So is there some reason that whenever you get a promotion, you just kind of go rip shit? Like, what's going on there?
No, I don't know. I've noticed the same thing over the past couple of years, but I'm not sure that there's correlation or causation right there. I think that part of it is just, getting a fresh start and trying to fit into a new team.
So we're getting to the point of this show here where I like to ask, especially the guys in Worcester, because you guys had the luxury of playing for one of the best managers that's in minor league baseball, I would say, in Chad Tracy. So I guess I just wanted to get your thoughts on what it was like for you, and obviously even playing for Epi down at Double A as well, as I've heard nothing but great things about him. So I guess what was your thoughts of playing for a guy like Tracy and Montville and Getty and just being around, and even Paul Abbott, just being around those guys this past year?
Yeah, I felt really lucky this whole year, in terms of staff. Playing and starting out in Portland under Epi and working with Mickey Zhang every day. That staff felt incredible to me, and then stepping up to AAA and not really knowing anybody outside of Getty and Montville coming in. Had briefly worked with Tracy in some catching drills, but not enough to really know his personality or for him to know my personality. And, it just felt like a seamless transition. They really welcomed me, and, you see how they approach every single day from the coaching side, and it makes you want to work and get better.
Now, did Trace give you any pointers on, I remember getting there early a few times and I would see him out there, and I think it may have been Palka. It could have been also Crook when he was, kind of messing around with first base a little bit. Did he give you any tips on playing first base or anything like that?
That was a little bit more Flo, Jose Flores.
Okay.
They worked with me a lot, kind of the crash course, I'll call it. On my drive from Portland to Worcester, Trace called me and said, "Hey, I know you've played first base in the past. I know it's been a little while. Do you think you can play tonight?" And I said, "Absolutely." To say that there wasn't a little bit of nerves before that game for me, I'd be lying. But they worked with me a lot to get me to the point where I felt comfortable over there. And there were a few growing pains in there with a couple errors, a throwing error and a couple fielding errors here or there. But they worked with me a lot.
Ed, what do you? I feel like you're smirking right now. So
yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking about the AFL season. Just came to a close, I believe, or it's coming to a close today. It's reaching the end of it. You got to do that in 2022, and you got to participate in the home run derby there, if I'm not mistaken. How does one prepare for a home run derby? And I've seen the idea thrown around that instead of extra innings, a tie game in the ninth inning is determined by a home run derby. How do you feel about that idea?
Well, the first thing that crossed into my mind when you mentioned that is I know Joe Davis would kill to be in that situation. So, I think about some of the BP rounds that I would hit with him, and we would kind of unofficially, hit each other on the shoulder and be like, this round home run derby. And I think that's about as much preparation as I've ever had for a home run derby. I guess I've been in a couple in my life, dating back to Cape Cod League, and that I think you just try to lift the ball a little bit and let your swing play.
Can it mess up your swing at all after that? Because I've heard that happens sometimes with major leaguers. I remember it must have been over a decade ago, but Bobby Abreu, I believe, won a home run derby or did really well in it. And then after that, just his power was just shot for the season. Does it ever affect it afterwards for you?
I did my best to believe in out of sight, out of mind.
I love that.
Yeah, now, how do you feel about that though? Just to decide games.
I think it would be fun. I'm not sure that it's ever a practical thing that they'll bring in, but you never know. I think that it would be a lot of fun, and I think the guys would really get into it. So it might even change the roster a little bit if you need somebody to come in and put on a show to win a game.
Create that. I mean, there were, speaking of putting on a show, there was that Greenville team. I think it was 2022. There was some serious pop on that between you, Joe, Nico Cavadas was there, Nick Northcutt. Who hit the longest home run on that team?
Joe Davis, for sure. I mean, I don't know if you know much about the Greenville field, but
with the hotel,
Greenville has the Monster with the apartments behind it, and there's a bar up on top of that. And I saw Joe put a couple up over that bar. It was special.
That's cool. That was just such a fun team to follow.
Yeah, it was such a fun team, and to be able to move up with some of those guys and watch the success that some of those guys that have moved on have had, it really is a special team.
So did you ever, this past year in Worcester, I felt like at times the ball was absolutely just flying out of there. I don't even, every time Dahlbeck would get in the box, I felt like there was one going off the scoreboard. Did it kind of, were you there for that home run that Dahlbeck hit off the scoreboard and left? I think that was later.
Not off the scoreboard. I was there when he hit the one off the train.
Okay.
That's awesome.
Well, actually, I was told that he did that multiple times. So I was there for one of the times that he hit the ball off the train. So, yeah.
So did you ever get the mindset? Because I even on media day this past year, I know you weren't up there yet, but I remember they went to go do BP afterward, and Palka was hitting ones like, I don't even know where it landed. It had to have gone like at least 2 streets over the Worcester wall. It was insane the way he was hitting.
I'm sure. Yeah.
Did it kind of give you that, like, I need, not one up these guys, but I need to show these guys that I can, I got some power in the tank as well?
It might have even been the opposite. I watch guys like Palka and Bob and hit balls like that, and I'm just not even sure if I have that kind of juice. That's something special. I think the first week that I was with Worcester, or the first full week, we were down in Norfolk, and Bob hits a ball like 110 backside and clears everything, and that was kind of the first indication that that I was witnessing something special.
Now, you mentioned at the very beginning of this that you were going to be starting up some baseball related activities. What are your off-season plans looking like right now?
I'm actually about to go home for a little bit before Thanksgiving and spend some time with family. During that, I won't really do too much baseball stuff, but like I said, I kind of like to start slow. I started hitting off the tee and doing some flips, started throwing. not to bases or anything, just 90 feet, get the arm moving again, get some cracks out, and then that start slow and work up. So probably come December, start working off a machine and getting some catching drills going, and then once the pitchers start picking up, become a hot commodity and catch a lot of bullpens.
Do you do any bullpens with the big league guys right now, or is it more like the AAA, AA?
I'll catch anybody that comes around. So last year I caught a couple big league guys over the off season here and there, and quite a few minor league guys that are working out around here.
He's in the streets of LA right now, so and you can never predict what's about to happen in the background. So we'll give him a couple seconds to let that. Okay, I think he's good.
I think we're clear. Yeah, we were good for a long time.
No, you're good, man. It's unpredictable. I bet. So, all right, we're getting to the point of the show where I have some one-offs here, and we're gonna dive on in because I'm excited because I've asked this question to every single guy that's been on the show, and people obviously have been from all over the country in the Red Sox system. We've had a few guys from outside the Sox system, so I'm gonna give it to you because I have faith that you're gonna be on a good side, right side of history here. So my first question here is, what would be your go-to fried chicken fast food place?
That's a loaded question. I would ask what if you would constitute like Hattie B's in Nashville as a fast food fried chicken.
Does it have multiple locations
within Nashville? Yes. Outside of Nashville, I'm not so sure.
Oh man,
and it says restaurant chain right here when you Google it, so I would say yes.
Well, we let Chicken Express. We let that be an answer, and that's like a Texas thing. So maybe
I would say after that, I grew up on KFC.
Wow,
that's our first KFC answer so far, which is a good answer. I don't have an issue with KFC, but I took the line of Chick-fil-A. Parker has something very different that I think he's trying to get sponsorship from.
I love Chick-fil-A. I really, really love Chick-fil-A, but in my mind, when you said fried chicken, I picture a bucket of fried chicken. So I don't. I don't picture a chicken sandwich. I picture a bucket of fried chicken. In my head, that's KFC.
Are you familiar with the Curse of the Colonel?
Or Bojangles? Bojangles is also very high on my list. I love Bojangles. So.
Are you familiar with the Curse of the Colonel?
I'm not.
It's like a Japanese curse for the league there that just got broken this year, and this is just super paraphrased, but I guess a team won the Japanese championship, and there was like a KFC statue of like the Colonel, and they threw it into the water. And the team did not win a World Series after that, I guess, until this year.
Wow.
I had no idea about that.
It's insane.
I will say, what I was expecting out of you was, I saw you obviously a North Carolina guy, so Bojangles is obviously out that way. So Bojangles is very underrated. Zaxby's was the correct answer, followed by Cane's. And then I'll let you go anywhere else from there. But it's okay. We'll let it slide.
Yeah. I do love Zaxby's and Cane's. I just don't have quite the history of going there as I do of Bojangles and KFC. So
it's fair. I know Zaxby's claim to fame is they're in every SEC town. Like I remember because I was always curious why there was 2 in Columbia, Missouri, and I'm like, why? Like, so it's like the farthest north, and all the rest of them are kind of like down in the south. So I'm kind of like, why are you here? And they just said, oh, we're at every SEC school. So definitely love Zaxby's, and hopefully they promote one day. All right, so I have another question for you. You're a Carolina guy. We've had a a different Carolina guy on before, Brendan Nail, and he said this to us, and I was definitely curious about it after I did a little more digging into this. He said there is a barbecue rivalry in the state of Carolina. Like, so what is the difference, I guess, between, like, he said, like, Western was like is like a different type based as the other side. Like, I need to know more about this.
I think he's referring to mustard based versus vinegar based.
Okay, I think
does that
so.
sound right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I never remember which is which in terms of Western or Eastern, but I'm kind of on the fence. You know, I like vinegar based. I really can go either way.
Okay, I was curious because he seemed like it was like a pretty big rivalry there, and I was kind of like, I've never even heard of that before. I've obviously heard of like Carolina barbecue, like I think everybody has.
I guess
didn't
Raleigh's a little more central. Maybe we're not quite east enough to be Eastern and west enough to be Western.
Okay, yeah, I mean he's a Western Carolina guy anyway, so that makes more sense. All right, so I had another question here. So after you left Worcester to end the year, like, did you end up, I guess, you didn't drive all the way out to California, I'm assuming.
No, I drove to North Carolina, spent about a week there, and then flew out to California.
Okay, because I was curious about this with with Sogard actually, because I was kind of, his family's out in California, and I'm just like, there's no way you took a car from Worcester all the way across the country to California.
There's people that do it.
I know, and I was gonna ask you, I'm like, I don't know if you had your car out there, but I'm like, how long did that take you? Because it would probably take you around 4 days, I would assume.
I would think so. I think Rio Gomez might have done it if I'm not mistaken, but he also could have shipped his car. I don't remember right.
Okay, I was curious, man, because it seemed like if you guys wanted your car back to wherever you are, I'm just like, holy cow, like I can't even imagine. But I got a sort of baseball related question next here, and unless Ed, you had maybe a one-off or two.
Oh, I'm good for right now. You keep going. You're feeling the flow right now.
Yeah, I don't know. I was curious about something. I was kind of looking at the returning roster for the Woo Sox, just who was on the roster last year, and you're the only catcher that's coming back into 2024. I guess, like, where's your mindset at, like, with that? You possibly could have a starting spot. Like, I mean, you're obviously going to have some playing time, but I guess what's on the mindset as you go into 24, being like, okay, I might be the guy.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of question marks, and I think that also extends beyond the catching role as well. I think that there's a lot of people that are curious of what direction the organization is going to go with new leadership. So I'm excited. I think that we're all excited to see how it's going to play out. In terms of the catching role, the thing that I can control is my work over this off season, and doing my best to be prepared to start and be prepared to be in a situation where I'm catching throughout the week. I think that's my goal, and that I want that, and my job is to be as best prepared as possible.
What do you like to do outside of baseball? I know that Nick Sogard told us that you're something of a crossword puzzle guy. Are you generally into that kind of thing?
Yeah, I do love crossword puzzles. We got big into them this year in the locker room. So there's a group of us doing them just about every single day in the locker room. I've continued that, maybe not quite as religiously, but still love to get on Washington Post and try to knock those out. Really anything outdoors, I enjoy. Being in Southern California, I love hiking, going to the beach. When I go back home, I try to get out and do a little deer or duck hunting when I can, and then lots of golfing. golfing here, golfing up in Tahoe, and then golfing at home.
And I speaking of the locker room, why did you never get in on the ping pong action?
I think it would have taken me a little too long to get to the level that those guys were playing at. It's been quite a while since I played any ping pong, and I sat around and watched them for about a week or so, and made my decision that I wasn't going to step in.
Can I ask who, in your mind, is the biggest psychopath on the table in the locker room?
On the ping pong table?
Yes.
Probably Ryan Fitzgerald.
Wow. I was expecting AJ Politi.
Well, yeah, Politi gets pretty competitive. He got pretty competitive. But I watched Fitzy do some damage on the ping pong table. So,
who's the most competitive guy on the baseball field that you play with?
Great question. It's a really tough question, to be honest.
Seems like there are a lot of competitive guys there.
I find it hard to gauge because being a catcher, you spend a lot of time with pitchers, and a lot of the vibe with pitchers when they're in the dugout is they're trying to keep loose because they're so incredibly focused when they're out on the mound, and when it's not their turn to pitch, they're trying to decompress a little bit. But that's not to say that they're not competitive, because they're still watching the game and they're trying to learn from it. But when their time comes around, they're just as competitive as anybody else on the field. Overall competitiveness, in terms of baseball and ping pong and just about any sport that you could think of, would be Christian Koss. Probably the guy is a pretty incredible athlete, and loves to get competitive on the golf course, and even if it's just like hacky sack around the locker room or ping pong, he's pretty intense.
Yeah, speaking of the just working with pitchers, there's a guy that you got to work with quite a bit at both levels, and that's Luis Guerrero, who has 100-mile-an-hour heat. He has that splitter that seems like it's a cheat code. Does he have the best stuff in the system right now, or at least at AAA? Does he have, just if there was one guy that you did not want to go up against, batting against him, would that be Guerrero?
I'm not sure. Luis's stuff is special. And you see the way that he works every day, and the work that he puts in, and his stuff is truly special. In terms of an at bat against, I don't know that there's so many good pitchers in our organization that would probably be a nightmare for me to face. Especially them knowing me and what I'm doing up there. They might have a little more to say.
Well, what type of pitcher do you like hitting against? And don't name names, but if there's just a type of pitcher that you can do damage against.
I feel like it changes throughout the year, so I'm not sure that there's exactly one specific guy in my mind or one specific type in my mind, but.
And so I wanted to ask you something, and I remember standing in the locker room one day, and Caleb Hamilton was walking by, and I think it may have been the day after. I think there may have been some call-ups, and Ryan Fernandez got called up, and I think Caleb caught a bullpen of him for the first time, and he came back, and he was kind of like doing this with his hand or something, and I'm like, what's wrong? And he's just like, that guy throws hard. Like he throws hard. He's like, that's not what I'm used to, like, around here. So was there any moments for you like that where you're just like, holy cow, this guy's bringing it today?
Yeah. I mean, especially with guys like Luis or, Ryan, Ryan, especially, you know, he throws everything hard. I mean, I don't know exactly what he topped out with on his slider this year, but I would guess it was probably 92, 93 with his slider. You know, and it probably gets tagged as a cutter, but at least on the pitch com, you know, we're pressing slider. So, but yeah, you know, and especially with you know, starting in Double-A, and I really felt like I had a pretty good understanding and had caught most of those guys on that staff before, and then to come up to Triple-A and really, you know, just do my best to get the express lane version of what every pitcher's got, and you know what they like to throw, and you know that's where Caleb and Oso really came clutch for me. You know, given occasionally it was in between innings, just, you know, hey man, what's this guy throwing? What's he like? And they're telling me as I'm running out, and you know, you're doing your best to make the pitcher as comfortable as they can be out on the mound, and trying to feel like you have chemistry with them. When, you know, this occasionally it was the first time I saw him touch a baseball.
Yeah, I saw that Ronaldo Hernandez Oso got he declared free agency, so there's a chance he's not going to be with the club next year. What did he mean to you, just going through the organization with him, and what does he bring to a clubhouse for any teams that might be considering picking him up?
Yeah, I mean, I had quite a bit of, you know, FaceTime experience with Oso in terms of that, going back to Instructs in 2020. You know, you see him around, and you know he's a big guy. He can be a little bit intimidating, and you know, obviously his nickname is Oso, the Bear. But you know, getting to know him, he's incredible. You know, he was a great teammate to have, and you know, really welcome me in as another catcher, and you know, just such a great teammate and fun and exciting to be around, and you know, special player. Some of the home runs that he hits are just impressive, and you know, professional at bat always.
It seemed like he got better at taking pitches this year. Just when you look at the walk rate, it went up quite a bit. He's got such a strong arm too. You really gotta think that there's a major league opportunity waiting for him somewhere.
Yeah, you know, and that's probably my number one hope for him, is that if it's not with the Red Sox, that it's somewhere else. And you know, I think everyone in that locker room wants to see that guy succeed.
Yeah, Oso was one of the nicest guys in the clubhouse. Always had a smile on his face. Always, I don't know, he just always seemed like he was in a good mood. So it was always fun to be around. But you've given us 42 minutes of your time, so definitely appreciate that. I have one last question, and I am not asking you anything about Vandy football this year. I'm going to refrain.
All right, big XL there. I thought you were going to ask me about the Missouri game. So
no, it's expected, right? Like it wasn't like an upset or anything. So it's not that big of a deal, right? We got to beat the teams at the bottom, you know. So
all right.
That stadium, by the way,
had to get that one in.
That stadium, by the way, though, I don't know what's going on there. I know they're in the middle of doing the construction, but like, holy cow, they planned that a little poorly. And it was filled with Auburn fans this past week. I did see that. I don't think that's ever going to happen again. It shouldn't at an SEC school, but I'll show you some love, because Vandy baseball is obviously at the top.
Yeah, you know, hopefully once the renovations are done, we're gonna start swaying the fans a little bit, and we'll get some sellout crowds, and you know, we'll work our way up. You know, Rome wasn't built in a day, so you know, hopefully Vanderbilt football can start stepping in the right direction.
I was going to say, man, it's Nashville. Like, I know Vandy's been getting a lot of crap for the football, obviously not being great, but Nashville is easily a top 2, 3, maybe SEC town. I mean, Athens is up there, and obviously, I don't know. Actually, never mind. They're probably top 2. All right. So my last question here. I kind of been asking this to a few guys, but I wanted to see, are you a goals guy at all?
The goal in what way?
So like, So obviously you're going into this off season and before you get to the spring training, and do you have any goals in mind that you want to hit before you get to the show up at spring training in February?
I think that there are I call them tangible goals of like we want to hit so many home runs this year. We want to hit X batting percentage or whatever. But in terms of spring training, I just want to feel as prepared as possible. I want to feel like I did everything in my power to get better this offseason and prepare myself to be in a position where I can roll straight into spring training and perform.
Well, Ed, if you don't have anything else,
I got one last thing that I meant to ask earlier. And
Yep.
I'm never sure with like this North Carolina, South Carolina, that area. Favorite team growing up, favorite player, and was there a player that you try to base your game off of now? So it's kind of a three-parter there, but they're quick answers.
Yeah, I will answer that not quickly in the sense that the way that I always love to answer that question is my favorite team is the Carolina Panthers. My favorite player was Luke Kuechly, and that was always who I tried to base my game off of.
So you're a football player who just happens to be good at baseball.
Ed, I would tell you to be a little more specific the next time if you're looking for a baseball answer to ask what baseball team. But yes, growing up, I loved watching football. That's something that I shared with my dad. I played football my whole life until college. Really, really loved it. Obviously, baseball was what called me, and so I love to answer that question with the Carolina Panthers, Luke Kuechly, and Luke Kuechly is who I try to base my game off of.
Well, I will follow that up very quickly. Then, were you a linebacker then? Like, what did you play when you were a football player? Gotcha.
I was a linebacker. I played a little bit of fullback, and I did a little bit of kicking in my time as well. My dad was also kicked, and so he taught me.
Did you enjoy playing fullback, just being able to just create a hole or just an impact block or anything?
Loved it. My high school ran the spread offense, so it wasn't too often that I got to go in there for that. So, any chance that I had, I was more than happy to go.
Let me tell you what, my high school ran a triple option. You would have thrived there, all right? Like, you would have loved that. So, all right, man. Well, we appreciate the time. You've given us so much of your time this evening. So I definitely want to say thank you for joining us, and we'll be seeing you, I guess, in towards spring training and hopefully in Worcester, obviously, to start the year. So thank you so much for coming on.
Best of luck.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Andrew, and thank you so much, Ed. I appreciate it, and happy holidays to y'all as well.